Hello, welcome to part two of how to create an online training module in VSys One for those who've purchased this online training module tool. This training will specifically cover how to create the online training now that the quiz has been set up and how we're going to display it to our volunteers. Again, an additional disclaimer that what's shown in this recording may be version specific and your current version of VSys may either look different or may not have all of the displayed options in this demo. Picking up where we left off, now that we have our hand washing training quiz set up, we can now create the online training itself and configure its settings. So how we get to that is we're going to want to back out. So remember to get to the online training quiz, we had to click into that second section here. Now we're just going to go back to our online trainings. To create a new online training, we're going to just click on this blue link here, add online training. Once it opens up, we're going to fill in some important fields. First, of course, is always our description. So I'm just going to make this description match the one that we had earlier. So hand washing training. The next field that's really important is the code. This is what's going to allow us to access the training and give it a unique link. So the code here really can be whatever you want. I'm just going to make it hand wash and then just make sure that it's a unique code so that there's no other trainings that have the same code. Next, we're going to select the subject. So as mentioned in the first part, this is why we needed the training subject to be created first. For the sample one, I'm just going to put safety. Mechanism is also important, and this is where we're going to want to select mix HTML content and questions to match the quiz itself. Some of these other options, if you wanted to select a location or first and last date shown, completely up to you. And then, of course, we want to select the quiz. So again, this was the quiz that we had created in part one. So I'm going to select hand washing training. So this is the quiz that's going to be displayed, and these are the properties or the settings of the actual training itself. Some other options you can choose to show if you'd like, both correct and incorrect responses, or only if you want to show incorrect responses, either option. And then if you don't want to show the actual correct answers, the passing score. So let's say if this was a quiz with 10 questions, they needed to get at least an 80%. That's where we can configure the score. This one, I'm going to say it has to have a 100% passing score. If you would like to redirect your volunteers to specific URLs upon pass or fail, you can configure that. So let's say if they pass the quiz, we want to send them back to the homepage. You can just put in the homepage there. If they fail the quiz and you want them to retake the quiz, we could also configure it here as well. So we could say send them back to pages/training/ the specific training itself that they just failed. So that'll be the link on how they can get back to this training here. Some other options is you can also filter by requirements. So who exactly should have access to this online training? If they need to have some other prerequisite training, specific people types, groups, statuses, so on and so forth. But just for demonstration purposes, we put in our description, our code, our subject, our mechanism, and selected the quiz. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And I'm going to save here. I'm going to give it a minute so that the quiz can actually be created. But next, let's actually log into the volunteer portal, access the quiz via the link, its unique link, and actually view the training that we had created ourselves. So now that we're logged into our volunteer portal, we can access that training via that unique link. So to access that training, I'm just going to type in after pages, we're going to do training/hand wash. So that was the unique code that we had. And then just to access the training, we just want to make sure we do pages/training. So if we hit enter, we should now be able to access the brand new training that we had created. So this here were the instructions that we had set up in the quiz itself. If we hit start, we're going to be able to access our new training now. We had that little HTML block of text that we had created onto that PDF that we had embedded. Second page of that PDF. Onto our little YouTube video. You can press play. The video and the audio are on right there. And then let's just pretend that we are finished watching the video. Now we're getting to that multiple choice question. And then at the very end, we had built in that little attestation. And then at the end, it looks like I had passed and I'm all done. That's essentially the online training. So it looks like the training was set up correctly and we were able to take and successfully pass the training. Now that our training's been created, let's just go over the 3 different ways that your volunteers can access that training. So that first option that I actually just showed you was via direct link. So let's say you had a specific training that you wanted, maybe just a specific group of volunteers to access, you can always have that link. So earlier we had that link, it was pages/training/hand wash, you can copy and paste this unique URL in a letter template, VSys Live message, however you wanted to communicate your volunteers that they needed to get to and complete that training. You can also display the training on a listing. So if we had a specific page that was displaying all of the different listings of available online trainings, for example, here we have a page, online trainings, and some of the different online trainings that are available, you could also configure a specific listing there. For a listing on a page, you can insert a listing of online training courses. So let's say we were on within VSys Live, that training page, you could just drag over online trainings and you can configure on that listing which training subjects you'd like the volunteers to be able to access. So that's the second option. Or you can also have your volunteers access that online training if it was a checklist requirement as well. So if it was a checklist requirement, let's say that you wanted, they're missing a specific training subject or a certification that's linked to that online training, you can have the finish item for that checklist be that specific online training that we created. And that essentially sums up our part 2 of the online training module. So if we do a little recap, in the first part, we created the online training quiz itself, that hand washing quiz. Once we had that quiz ready, we then actually set up the online training. So here we went into add a new training. We set up its properties and configured the different settings there. Once we finished and we created the online training, we were then able to access the training using its direct link and that code that we had created via a listing showing all available online trainings, or if you wanted to incorporate it as a part of a checklist as well. Thank you so much for your time. And that was part 2 of how to create an online training.